Rick Revel, Mr. History, brought to you in part by Dixie Gun Works in Union City, Tennessee. When most Americans hear the term Civil War, they think of the great conflict between the North and the South. Men in blue fighting against men in gray. Both the Union and Confederate armies were heavily dependent on mounted scouts who would provide vital information that could turn the tide of battle or avoid one altogether. For the Army of Tennessee, the Coleman Scouts were those very messengers that Confederate commanders depended on. But on the other hand, Federal officers vowed to eradicate Coleman Scouts. And one such victim to the Union Army's wrath was Sam Davis. At the age of 21, Sam Davis was executed by the Union Army, and he became known as the boy hero of the Confederacy. We're here today at the Sam Davis home in Smyrna, Tennessee, and we're going to tell you the rest of his tragic story. It doesn't matter if you're a reenactor who loves the smell of black powder in the morning on the battlefield, or a collector who admires the craftsmanship of a well-made weapon of old. Dixie Gun Works has a Pedersoli just for you. And not only does Dixie Gun Works have a warehouse full of Pedersoli reproduction firearms, they have an incredible collection of antique firearms. Inside the pages of their huge catalog, you will find gun parts, shooting accessories, reenactor clothing, camping supplies, and even some big guns if you like to burn a lot of powder. Dixie Gun Works is located in Union City, Tennessee. But for your convenience, visit our online store at www.dixiegunworks.com or call 1-800-238-6785. I gave my good friend James Patterson a call to see if he would meet me at the Sam Davis home. James has dedicated a good portion of his life to make sure this historic mansion is preserved, and the story of Sam Davis is never forgotten. James Patterson, Lord have mercy, fella. You realize how long it's been? We've known each other forever. It seems like we were in a reenactment together at Oakland.
Oakland's Mansion in Murfreesboro.
Yeah, we was doing this thing about a forest raid.
Forest raid on
his birthday.
It was his birthday raid, sure
was. Yes, it was his birthday raid. But we're here today to talk about Sam Davis. Now, Sam Davis was part of the 1st Tennessee Infantry, which actually had a nice history within itself. All the states had militia. 1st Tennessee Infantry, part of the militia that went to Mexico. Fought in the Mexican-American War. So later, when secession came, the 1st Tennessee Militia, 1st Tennessee Infantry became part of the Provisional Confederate Army.
Yeah.
Now that's part of what, that's where Sam joined, is that correct?
Yeah, he joined the 1st Tennessee Infantry, and he had actually been in school in Nashville, and the cadets from that school came to Rutherford County and actually trained these new soldiers to be soldiers. So,
wow. Now that was under Bushrod Johnson was his.
Sure was, yeah.
Yeah, Bushrod was one of his favorites. He always admired Bushrod, if I remember correct.
Yeah.
That's one of his heroes. So it's kind of neat that I always thought Bushrod was kind of a interesting individual to study.
Yeah, his background, I think his family were actually Quakers, and he was from Ohio, so it was a guy from up north that came down here and joined in the cause.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, his background. And then at Fort Donelson, he makes the great escape there with Forrest.
Yeah.
After Forrest left, he followed the same trail and went out. So Bushrod Johnson, interesting man.
Yeah.
Now, Sam, kind of give me some of the family aspect of it. We're here at the Davis home. Kind of tell me a little bit about the house and the family.
Yeah, this house was purchased in 1850.
Okay.
Sam's father, Charles, had been married, his first wife, Margaret. They had 4 children, and Margaret passed away, and then Charles married Jane Simmons, and they had 9 children, Sam being the oldest. And like I said, in 1850, they purchased this house and moved the family here. Jane's mother actually lived with them, and she was closer to Charles's age than Jane was. There was almost a 20-year spread between those two.
Wow.
And she watched after the kids, and Sam grew up here on the farm like all the boys did back then, learning how to work the crops and so forth.
Right.
And
Now, him being a part of the 1st Tennessee, he got to see some infantry battle. Is that correct?
yeah, the 1st Tennessee first got sent off to Virginia, so there were some battles up in Virginia that he was in, and of course then he ended up at the Battle of Stones River. There's some more battles in between there, but it's about that time that they formed the Coleman Scouts to come in behind enemy lines and gather information and so forth, and it's about that time that Sam joined the Coleman Scouts.
Wow. Now, Coleman, can you tell me a little bit about the Coleman Scouts? Kind of give me a
Yeah,
thing.
it was about 100 men, and you had to be young. They preferred you not to be married. No, you had to know how to ride and shoot good, and it was a pretty daring group to be a part of. And Sam's half-brother had actually been a member of the Coleman Scouts, and along with Sam.
Now, this was an elite group of men, and they rode behind the lines.
Right. Yeah, because after the Battle of Murfreesboro, Stones River, whichever
Right.
side you're on, you want to call it, after that battle was over, Middle Tennessee was pretty much Union occupied, and this
Right.
area here was in Union occupation too. So Sam would make his rides into Nashville and gather information and see what he could find out about what the Yankees were doing.
Did he normally ride in full uniform, or how did he present himself in Coleman Scouts?
He was more in civilian clothes.
Okay.
When he came here, the last night he saw his parents, his mother had actually given him a Union overcoat that had been dyed with walnut hulls, and it was almost a black coat.
Okay.
And he did have a Confederate uniform on at that time.
Did he?
Yeah, but of course, when he was trying to work in behind enemy lines, he couldn't have on your Confederate uniform and not be recognized.
Yeah, be conspicuous for sure then.
Yeah.
And now this kind of leading up to what happened to Sam, as I did some research, I found that Sam was not the only individual that paid the price for some call being a spy or being a scout.
Yeah.
There were other men. There was one gentleman that was hung 6 months before Sam was.
Yeah.
So there are evidence that in Middle Tennessee, you paid the price if you got caught.
Yeah. There's been a lot of research done on the Coleman Scouts, so there's a history of just about every man that was in the Scouts, and you can see what happened to some of those individuals. Like you said, a lot of them were murdered or killed,
Yes.
or however you want to call it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were. They paid the price for their loyalty to the South. Now, once Sam was captured, kind of give me a breakdown of how he was captured, who captured him, and then what took place after that.
Okay, he was south of Pulaski, actually, in Giles County, in a little community called Minor Hill, and he was resting under a tree, and some Kansas cavalrymen, Unionists, came up, and they were dressed in Confederate uniforms. And this was...
That's devious.
Yeah, it is. November 19th of 1863. And they asked him, what was he doing? And they pretty much captured him right there. and took him into Pulaski and brought him before General Dodge, and that's when they started questioning him and wanted to know who he was and what he was doing in that area, and started making charges against him and placed him into jail there in Giles County in Pulaski.
If you were going to be captured, probably the last general that you'd want to be captured under would be Grenville Dodge.
Yeah.
That man right there, not only what he did to Sam, but he did several other things across the state of Tennessee that's kind of makes your skin crawl. I mean, he did some pretty bad things.
Yeah. Well, Grenville Dodge, and then you had Ebenezer Payne also, who was another bad one.
who caused real pain. I mean, they really did.
Yeah.
Because there's a story out of Lincoln County where they were going under the command of Grenville Dodge to go and execute anybody they found on furlough, any Confederate they found on furlough. So they were known for doing that.
From the pens of the Kennedy twins comes a new literary composition. The renowned authors of The South Was Right and a dozen more publications have become known for their zeal for conservatism and Southern heritage preservation. In their new book, Jefferson Davis, High Road to Emancipation and Constitutional Government, Donnie and Ron Kennedy hold nothing back. They're quick to point out Davis's high road approach to emancipation, while Lincoln chose the low road. Never afraid of controversy and to go against the grain of the politically correct, the Kennedy twins expose how our constitutional republic of sovereign states has been transformed into a deep state of federal government. To get your copy of the book that defends President Davis and the South, go to www.kennedytwins.com. That's www.kennedytwins.com.
Many years ago, Discovery Park of America was nothing more than a dream for Robert and Jenny Kirkland. Located in Union City, Tennessee, this world-class museum and learning center is second to none. It doesn't matter if you're a teacher planning a class trip, a parent looking for a vacation stop, or an individual who loves history and science, Discovery Park of America is the place for you. From days gone by to the future and beyond, there is something for everyone, no matter your age or point of interest. Since the year 2013, well over 1.3 million visitors have visited our 50-acre, $100 million facility. What used to be a peaceful cornfield in the countryside is now a state-of-the-art destination for you and your family. For more information, go to www.discoveryparkofamerica.com.
We're here today in Chapel Hill, Tennessee at the Forest Boyhood Home. And I'm here with my good friend Gene Andrews and Mr. Rich Garcia. And we would like to invite you to come see this beautiful historic place and walk back in time.
Starting out as a private and making his way to lieutenant general, the tactics of Nathan Bedford Forrest are studied in military academies around the world. Come to Chapel Hill, Tennessee to see his boyhood home and take a walk back in time.
Back to Sam's story, once he was captured, what happened to him?
He was placed in the jail and they interrogated him. They were trying to get some information out of him, and he wouldn't say a word. You know, he was sticking to his honor, that he'd been raised up to be a man of your word and your honor. And they even put a guy in a cell with him to try to get some information out of him. Sam wouldn't talk. Right. And there was a young private from Ohio, I believe, Corwin Van Pelt, that kind of befriended Sam, and they talked a little while he was locked up there in jail. And Van Pelt had a little sympathy for Sam because he knew he was a young man of his convictions, and wasn't going to tell of who they wanted to know about. And they wanted to know about Coleman Scouts, who was over it, and Sam just wouldn't give them any information.
And they definitely wanted to know who the leader was.
They did.
And at one time, wasn't the leader captured and they didn't even know they had him captured?
They did. He was, they called him a seedy-looking old character they had captured and had there in jail with him. And he was actually there arrested at the same time Sam was in the jail cell beside of him.
That's right. And that's what I found so interesting about Sam's story. he never gave up.
He never
gave up his commander sitting in the cell next to him. But the old fox that was of Coleman's scouts, the commander, he was just as slick.
He was.
That's the reason they picked him to be the commander of Coleman's scouts, because he could teach the boys how to keep the quiet.
Yep, sure could.
And I was proud of what Sam did. Can you tell me more about what took place right before the execution? How he proved the manhood that he had?
Yeah, when they took him before Coleman, or not Coleman, but General Dodge, one of the last times they asked him, we'll give you your freedom if you just tell who it is. And he said, I'd rather die 1,000 deaths than betray a friend or my country. And, when he had stopped by his house here behind Union lines and saw his parents or his mother give him that Union overcoat, he wasn't just trying to save Coleman. He had all these other people that if once they started leaning on him, if he had told them he'd visited his parents behind the Union lines, they could have said, okay, the Davises had been harboring a Confederate soldier. They could have came in and burnt the Davis house. There were other people along the way that he had talked to. So I feel like it wasn't just Coleman that he was trying to save. And then Sam, they decided they're going to execute him, find him guilty on all the charges of spying and carrying papers behind enemy lines, and set the execution date, and he writes a letter home to his mother, and he has a while where he's with a Union chaplain in the jail cell. He says he prays with him, and Sam requests that they sing his mother's favorite hymn, On Jordan's Stormy Banks I Stand.
Right.
They do that, and he gives the chaplain his overcoat and gets ready to prepare himself to die the next day.
Yeah, and when they took him to the gallows, he actually rode on his coffin, didn't he? In the wagon.
Yeah, they had his hands tied, and or had cuffs on him and his boots tied together, sitting on his coffin. And from some of the accounts I've read, as he passed by the courthouse, he looked up and they had moved the prisoners into the courthouse, and he could see Coleman standing there, and he stands up and he bows towards the courthouse and sits back down.
That's moxie. Moxie.
That is. Moxie. And he rides up to the execution site, and they built a gallows on a hill right outside of town. I think it was probably to intimidate the population, because it could be seen from all around town. Dodge didn't even show up for the execution, which I thought was kind of bad. And whenever they get off, and Sam sits for a minute, and he asked Captain Armstrong, who was one of the Union officers, what's the latest from the battles, and he tells him about Chickamauga and all of what went on there. And Sam just says, well, I guess the boys had to fight the rest of the battles without me.
Right.
And they look at the watch and say, it's time now. And he goes up the steps, and Armstrong actually told him, he said, Sam, I'm sorry for what I'm about to have to do. And he said, I've done my duty, soldier. It's time for you to do yours.
To do yours.
Yeah.
And the amazing thing is they actually formed a square. The Union soldiers formed a square around the gallows, didn't
Right,
they?
yeah.
And that was, I guess that was an intimidation play, but it was also to make sure the execution took place and there would be no rescue.
Yeah.
But he approached the gallows, and they put the hood on him. It was over.
Yeah, stepped on the trap, and whenever they pulled the trap, he hung there for about 7 minutes, and he was still moving and convulsing, and the noose had been placed wrong around his neck. Instead of making it where it would break his neck, it actually just strangled him to death.
Choked him to death.
Yeah.
That's a sad way to go.
It really is.
Now, his story, and we're going to kind of wrap it up here, and how that story was hidden for years.
Yeah.
Nobody knew about it, and strangely enough, the man that starts the Confederate Veteran magazine stumbles upon the story, refuses to write it in the beginning.
Yeah.
And then later, it's confirmed to him back through two different, I think it was a couple of Union infantrymen that he heard in a conversation, that they confirmed that, yes, this happened.
Yeah.
And so he decides to print the story, and that's when it began to to circulate and became more well known, because it was basically unknown until the late 1800s.
Yeah, Sumner Cunningham was from Shelbyville, and he was, like you said, the editor of the Confederate Veteran magazine, and wrote that article, and they ended up having a huge United Confederate Veterans memorial here. Said men come from all over to pay tribute to Sam Davis, and that's when they kicked off the movement to have the Sam Davis statue placed downtown Nashville, and then the state of Tennessee bought this site and the acreage to start the Sam Davis Memorial Association.
1928, something like that?
Yeah.
1928.
After Sam's body was brought back to Smyrna to be buried, his mother was actually upstairs in the girls' bedroom window looking out the driveway, and they said when the wagon pulled up with a coffin, she fainted. And
wow.
there's just a sadness that I've always felt on this place. When you come up the driveway, you can almost see Miss Davis standing there looking out the window looking for her boy to come back home.
Right, and you've got a beautiful veranda view. So you must come here. It's one of those things that'll grab your heart, and people will keep coming back time and time again. I had a friend from Union City that came to visit about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and he has foster children, and one of the 16-year-old boys, he just found a whole new love of history by coming here.
Yeah.
So I think if you bring your children here, the teenagers, I think it's a very wise thing to do, because they get a chance to see another side of history that's not being taught in school, James.
Yeah. They learn about honor and trust and being a man of your word and doing what you said you're going to do too.
Yeah.
Looking for a place to go? The Alabama Music Hall of Fame should be the next place on your bucket list. From the Swampers to Nat King Cole. From country music to the blues. There are music legends everywhere. The Alabama Music Hall of Fame is at 617 Highway 72 West, Tuscumbia, Alabama. The Alabama Music Hall of Fame, where the legends live.
When my mother was in college, she danced with Confederate veterans. To me, it wasn't that far away. You know, my father knew this. My mother knew this. Almost 50 years ago, I joined the Sons of Confederate Veterans. In those days, we weren't concerned about saving monuments or any of those things. That wasn't necessary. In fact, none of us had any remote idea that it would ever come up, or we would have done something then. We can't just sit there and react. We have to be proactive.
The Sons of Confederate Veterans is the direct heir of the United Confederate Veterans and the oldest hereditary organization for male descendants of Confederate soldiers. Organized at Richmond, Virginia in 1896, the SCV continues to serve as a historical, patriotic, and non-political organization dedicated to ensuring that a true history of the 1861 to 1865 period is preserved. Membership in the SCV is open to all male descendants of any veteran who served honorably in the Confederate Armed Forces.
Dear friends, as an author and living historian, I travel this great country, and every time I see a church steeple and see the cross, I'm reminded that this nation was founded on strong, firm Christian principles. I've written a series of books, this one being In My Father's House, and they are available at Amazon.com. David Chaltis.
Get your copy today at Amazon.com.
The Sam Davis Home in Smyrna recently opened one of Middle Tennessee's most unique museums as part of a $1.5 million capital expansion. This new museum and visitor center includes a variety of galleries featuring never-before-seen artifacts of the Civil War, and includes a state-of-the-art theater where the fascinating story of Sam Davis, a true Tennessee hero, will be shown daily.
We broke ground on this wonderful new building on October 6, 2002. We've been able to restore the family carriage, and that is the largest artifact that will be in our museum. Also, a model of the farm, which we know the children are going to probably spend most of their time in the museum looking at that model of the farm. It's about 7.5 acres. Shows the home, the farmyard, where all of the outbuildings were in the original farm. It shows people, it shows chickens, pigs, cows, horses, everything that children will just love. This is a replica of the stained glass window that was given by the United Daughters of the Confederacy to the Museum of the Confederacy in Virginia. And we felt it was such a unique piece, something that we definitely wanted in this gallery. Since this is the Remembrance Gallery, this is the Memorial Gallery to Sam. And we were able to photograph it and reproduce it, so it did look very authentic. I'm sure people are going to want to go up and touch it, thinking it's the real stained glass window, but we feel like it makes a wonderful addition to this gallery.
Another feature of the Memorial Gallery is the magnificent new painting of Sam Davis by renowned artist David Wright. With the opening of the new museum and visitor center, the Sam Davis home expanded its focus to tell more about the Civil War in Middle Tennessee. The exhibits help place the story of Sam Davis into the bigger picture of the Civil War. The museum allows the Sam Davis Memorial Association to tell stories that have been ignored far too long on the site. One of the main stories is about slavery. The Davis family left few records, but the exhibits tell the poignant story of slavery in Middle Tennessee in general terms, giving a hint at what life must have been like for the 52 slaves who lived here.
We have grown men and women who hear the story who cry. It's something that every child, every teenager, every adult needs to hear, that there are people who would give their lives rather than betray a friend, and that is the greatest lesson you can teach anyone.
If you're ever near Smyrna, Tennessee, make sure you stop by the Sam Davis home, because the story of Sam Davis, it should never be forgotten. And make sure you tune in next week for another episode of History Highway.
My crew keeps me on the road from episode to episode, 'cause they